Hello, welcome back to Jorbs Scribbles on the Screen and talks about everything in the Slay the Spire compendium. I am not wearing glasses tonight because I would have had to go get them. Hopefully you'll still trust me. I feel like I look a little bit less trustworthy without glasses, but the things I'm going to be saying are still mostly true, except for one lie. No, they're all true to the best of my ability. So we're getting started on Ironclad uncommons, and first up is Battle Trance. Battle Trance is a 0-cost card. It draws you 3 cards, upgrading to 4 cards, and it gives you a debuff, which means you cannot draw additional cards this turn. First things first, this is very good card draw. This is a run-defining card at times if you pick it up early. I'm going to talk more about how it can define a run, but let's get the drawback out of the way first. You cannot draw additional cards this turn. Is a drawback, which means it will eat an artifact stack. So if you have a Clockwork Souvenir to give you an artifact charge and you want it to stop a debuff on turn 1, or if you have an artifact potion and you're drinking it expecting it to stop your speed potion from taking 5 dexterity away from you at the end of turn or something like that, and then you play Battle Trance, you're going to eat your artifact stack. So keep an eye on that. It's one of the interactions that isn't immensely obvious because it's easy not to think about the drawback of Battle Trance as a debuff, but it's important to not run into that as a mistake. The worst I ever saw anybody ever got by this drawback was when somebody played a Battle Trance, thought about their hand of 8 cards for a while, eventually decided that it was good to use a Gambler's Brew to get 8 different cards, like they couldn't do enough with the 8 cards in their hand, discarded all of their hand, and of course weren't able to draw more cards. So keep an eye on the Battle Trance drawback, because it can be nasty in subtle ways as well as in very obvious ways. I'm generally happy to get a second Battle Trance, but keep in mind that the second Battle Trance obviously isn't going to do very much for you if you draw it at the same time as the first Battle Trance. So like 2 I'm generally pretty happy with, although the second's less exciting than the first. 3 starts to get a little bit iffy. At some point you have a lot of card draw and you're like watering your deck down with copies of Battle Trance that aren't actually going to do much. The other thing the drawback does is it runs into some problems with Dark Embrace late game, but usually if you have like Dark Embrace and Corruption, your deck's going to be in such strong shape. Like if you have both of those cards in play, you're probably going to be doing okay, and it's probably not going to matter that much that you have a Battle Trance at that point. You can usually just not play it. You could even exhaust it with a Burning Pact or a True Grit if you want to keep on playing tons and tons of cards this turn, perhaps. So, in terms of run defining, Battle Trance is strong enough that if you have a couple of these going into Act 2, I think you can actually consider not taking Snecko Eye. Snecko Eye does make Battle Trance significantly worse because it makes it cost between 0 and 3 instead of costing 0. And it also provides a bunch of card draw. That's a large part of what Snecko Eye does that is valuable. When you have a Battle Trance or 2, you already have quite a lot of card draw going. Now, I'm not saying that if you have 2 Battle Trances, you shouldn't take Snecko Eye, but you can start to think about the other good relics at the end of Act 1 for sure. In situations where, like, usually in an Ironclad run, it's very hard to imagine not taking Snecko Eye at the end of Act 1 if it's offered to you. When you do have a Battle Trance or 2 and maybe an Energy Relic, I don't know what else you have exactly, stuff that costs 0 becomes much better. So a card like Anger, for example, plays very well with Battle Trance. But also cards like Flex Plus become pickable where they're not very exciting usually. What's the other one I wanted to bring up? Oh, the 0-cost card that applies AoE weak to enemies, which I can't actually remember the name of right now, is a lot more playable when you have this much card draw. And another thing that happens when you have this much card draw is that you don't need as much redundancy for your deck's ability to do certain things. So let's say that I have an Immolate in my deck and my deck's like 25 cards. If I'm thinking, alright, I want to be able to kill the Slavers in Act 2, so I need to have good AoE. Man, it would be weird to have a 25 card deck when you're preparing for Slavers. We'll say 20 cards then. Anyway, if I'm thinking I really want to be able to kill the Slavers, I have an Immolate for AoE, but if I bottom deck that card and don't draw it until turn 3 or 4, it may be too late to actually save me a lot of health in the fight. So in that situation without much card draw, I might look at a Whirlwind Plus and think, okay, I'll take an Immolate and a Whirlwind Plus. Even though, like, for Time Eater fight and Heart fight, I don't really want to have both of those cards. I don't really want to have either of those cards all that much for those fights. They're cards that are very good at AoE fights, and it's just like, I need to be able to draw one early and I don't have enough card draw to get away with only having one of them. But if I have a couple of Battle Trances, all of a sudden I can be more greedy with, like, saying, okay, I have one Immolate, I trust that I can draw that early enough in the AoE fights for it to carry them for me. And so not only do I get all of this card draw to draw all of my good cards, but also I don't have to add as many cards for each problem in the game. So I can start to build my deck's like central engine for late game fights or whatever sooner. Because there are just fewer things to worry about. It's harder to draw that poorly with a bit of card draw. So hopefully you came into this video already thinking Battle Trance is probably really, really good. Drawing 3 cards for 0 is very good for sure. This video's been mostly focused at like what exactly the limits of how good that are, but like this is one of the best possible cards you can see in Act 1. There's no doubt about that. This is an incredibly strong Ironclad card, which you should be happy to be taking. And yeah, just keeping an eye on how your deck composition ends up changing if you have a surplus of card draw, I think is somewhat important, because Ironclad's a class that doesn't get that much card draw like Battle Trance. It has engine-based card draw, like Dark Embrace or Evolve card draw, and it has like very minimal card draw in cards like Shrug It Off and Pommel Strike. But the only real other card that gets card draw like Battle Trance does is Offering, or maybe Burning Pact Plus if you can get an upgrade on it. And so, although Burning Pact Plus still costs 1, right? So if you're playing a deck with a Battle Trance in it, it does actually somewhat significantly change how it feels to play Ironclad, and keeping an eye on that's a good idea. Alright, hope you enjoyed the Battle Trance chat, and I'll see you next time.